The message came on a quiet morning in the year 2347. It arrived as a signal from deep space, far beyond the edge of the solar system. Scientists at the Global Communication Hub in Geneva worked for 3 days to decode it. When they finally understood what it said, the whole world changed. Ambassador Linda Grant was called to the hub on the 4th day. She was a tall woman with gray eyes and a calm face that never showed fear. She had spent 30 years speaking for Earth in difficult situations, but nothing had prepared her for this. The message was an invitation. Somewhere out there, beyond the stars humanity had only dreamed of reaching, there existed a galactic council. This council was made up of 47 different alien species. They had been watching Earth for a long time. Now they wanted to meet. Linda read the translation 3 times before she spoke. "They want us to come to them," she said. "To a place called Helix Prime." Kevin Price, her young assistant, stood beside her with wide eyes. "How far away is it?" 300 light years, said Dr. Samuel Burke, the chief scientist on the project. He was an older man with white hair and glasses that he was always pushing up his nose. "With our new fold drive, we could reach it in about 4 months." Linda turned to face the small group of officials who had gathered in the room. "Contact the Secretary General. Tell her we need to assemble a delegation. The best people we have. Diplomats, scientists, historians, military advisors. We leave in 6 months." The next 6 months were the busiest in human history. News of the invitation spread across Earth like fire. Some people celebrated, others worried. Many simply could not believe it was real. After centuries of wondering if humanity was alone in the universe, the answer had finally come. They were not alone. The universe wanted to talk. The ship chosen for the mission was called the Dauntless. It was humanity's first true interstellar vessel, built in orbit around Earth over 15 years. The fold drive at its heart could bend space itself, allowing the ship to travel distances that would have taken thousands of years with older technology. Captain Maria Santos was given command of the Dauntless. She was a steady woman, with dark hair and a reputation for keeping calm when everything around her was falling apart. Her crew of 200 was selected from the best officers in the combined space forces of Earth. The delegation itself numbered 50 people. Linda Grant led them, with Kevin Price at her side as her personal aide. Dr. Samuel Burke came as the chief science advisor. Commander Patricia Vance, a decorated officer with sharp features and even sharper instincts, served as the military representative. There were historians, cultural experts, linguists, and specialists in fields that had never existed before this moment. On the day of departure, billions of people watched the launch. The Dauntless rose from Earth's orbit and turned toward the stars. Linda stood at the observation window as their home planet grew smaller and smaller behind them. She wondered if she would ever see it again. The journey through folded space was strange. The ship would build up energy for hours, then release it in a single burst that pushed them across impossible distances. Each fold lasted only seconds from the perspective of those aboard, but covered light years of space. Between folds, the crew studied everything they knew about the Council. The information was limited. The invitation had included basic facts about the Council's structure and history. It was old, unbelievably old. Some of the member species had been traveling between stars for over 100,000 years. They had built a civilization that spanned thousands of worlds. They had rules. Many, many rules. They call themselves the Keepers of Order, Samuel explained during one of the daily briefings. Their primary goal is stability. They prevent wars between species. They regulate technology. They control expansion. Patricia frowned at this. Control how? New species are given designated territories? They cannot expand beyond those boundaries without permission? Certain technologies are restricted. Weapons above a certain power level are forbidden. And what happens if someone breaks these rules? Linda asked. Samuel hesitated. Records are not clear. But it seems that the Council acts collectively against rule breakers. 47 species working together. No one has successfully defied them in recorded history. Linda absorbed this information quietly. She had expected that joining a galactic community would come with compromises. But the more she learned, the more she wondered what humanity was walking into. 3 months into the journey, they made contact. A signal reached the Dauntless from a Council patrol ship. The message was brief and formal. They were expected. Guides would meet them at the edge of Council space and escort them to Helix Prime. The escort arrived 2 weeks later. 3 alien vessels appeared from nowhere, their designs unlike anything human engineers had ever imagined. One looked like a living creature, its hull covered in scales that shifted and moved. Another was a perfect sphere of polished metal. The third seemed to be made entirely of light. A voice came through the communication system, translated into perfect English by technology far beyond human understanding. Vessel Dauntless, we are your escort. Follow our heading. Do not deviate. Maria looked at Linda, who nodded. Follow them, she said. The final approach to Helix Prime took 2 days. As they drew closer, the station came into view, and everyone who saw it forgot how to breathe for a moment. It was enormous. Nice. The word did not do it justice. Helix Prime was a construct of crystalline spires and rotating rings that stretched across thousands of kilometers. Ships of every size and shape moved around it like insects around a hive. Light pulsed through its structure in patterns that seemed almost alive. Kevin stood beside Linda at the observation window. It's beautiful, he whispered. It's a message, Linda replied. They want us to see what they have built, what they can do. They want us to feel small. Do you feel small? Linda was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, just slightly. I feel curious. The Dauntless was directed to a docking port on the outer ring. As the ship connected to the station, Linda gathered her delegation in the main hall. 50 humans, standing together, about to step into a world no one from Earth had ever seen. Remember why we are here, she told them. We represent our entire species, every person who has ever lived, every person who will ever be born. They are all counting on us. Be respectful, be observant, and do not be afraid. The airlock opened, and a rush of cool, clean air flowed into the ship. Waiting on the other side was a creature unlike any they had seen before. It stood nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin that changed color as they watched. Its face had no mouth that they could see, only large eyes that studied them with obvious interest. Welcome to Helix Prime, it said, its voice coming from a device attached to its chest. I'm Counselor Teth. I will be your guide. Please, follow me. Linda took a deep breath and stepped forward, leading humanity into the unknown. The corridors of Helix Prime were wide enough for 20 people to walk side by side. The walls glowed with soft light that seemed to come from within the material itself. Strange sounds echoed from distant places. Voices and machines and things that had no name in any human language. Counselor Teth moved ahead of the delegation with smooth, flowing steps. Its skin shifted between blue and green as it walked, and Linda wondered if the colors meant something. Perhaps they showed emotion like a blush on a human face. There was so much she did not know. The council chamber is located in the central spire, Teth explained as they walked. You will be presented to the full assembly. Representatives from all 47 member species will be present. The High Tribunal will conduct your evaluation. Evaluation? Kevin asked from beside Linda. Yes, the tribunal will ask questions. They will judge your responses. Based on this evaluation, they will decide whether humanity is suitable for membership. Linda felt a chill run down her spine, but she kept her face calm. What kind of questions should we expect? Teth's colors shifted to a darker shade. Questions about your history, your culture, your conflicts. The tribunal is thorough. It will want to understand what kind of species you are. The delegation passed through a massive doorway and entered a transport pod. The walls were transparent, giving them a view of the station's interior as they moved. Linda saw gardens floating in zero gravity, filled with plants that glowed in colors she had never seen. She saw structures that defied physics, buildings that seemed to hang in empty space, with no support. She saw creatures of every shape and size going about their business, living their lives in this impossible place. Patricia Vance moved close to Linda and spoke quietly. I have been counting the ships we passed on approach. At least 500 military vessels in visible range. Heavy weapons on most of them. They want us to see their strength, Linda replied. Just like the station itself, is it working? Linda considered the question honestly. The station impresses me. The ships worry me, but neither changes what we came here to do. The transport pod arrived at the central spire, and the delegation stepped out into a waiting area. Other species were there, some sitting on strange furniture, others floating in liquid-filled containers, a few simply hovering in the air. They all turned to look at the humans. Linda felt their stares like weight on her shoulders. Some looked curious. Others looked disgust. A few showed no expression at all, their alien faces impossible to read. She straightened her back and walked with confidence she did not entirely feel. "The assembly will begin in 1 hour," Tith said. "You may wait here. Food and drinks suitable for your biology have been provided." When Teth left, the delegation gathered in a corner of the waiting area. Kevin pulled out a small device and began recording notes. Samuel was studying everything around them with fascination. Patricia was studying everything around them with suspicion. "Did you see the looks they gave us?" asked Dr. Hannah Morris, one of the cultural advisors. She was a small woman, with red hair and a nervous habit of twisting her fingers together. "Some of them looked at us like we were animals." "We are new," Samuel said. "Unknown. Of course they are suspicious." "It is more than suspicion," Patricia said. "I saw fear in some of those faces, and contempt in others." Linda listened to their concerns, but said nothing. She was watching the other species, trying to learn what she could from their behavior. She noticed that some of them kept their distance from each other. Old rivalries, perhaps, held in check by council rules but not forgotten. She noticed that some carried themselves with pride while others seemed beaten down, diminished somehow. She filed these observations away for later. When the hour passed, Teth returned and led them to the council chamber. The doors that opened before them were 50 feet tall, carved with symbols that might have been art or writing or both. Beyond them lay a space so vast that Linda could barely see the far wall. The chamber was shaped like an amphitheater, with hundreds of seats arranged in rising tiers around a central platform. Every seat was filled. Creatures of impossible variety looked down at the human delegation as they walked to the center of the room. The light in the chamber was bright but not harsh. It's designed to allow all species to see clearly, regardless of their visual capabilities. At the highest point of the chamber sat 5 beings on elevated platforms. These were the High Tribunal, the leaders of the Galactic Council. Each one was ancient beyond human understanding, representatives of the oldest and most powerful species in the known galaxy. The central figure drew Linda's attention immediately. It was called a Silith, according to the briefing materials. Its body was made of something that looked like crystal fused with coral, pulsing with inner light in slow, steady rhythms. This was the Prime Arbiter, the voice of the Tribunal. "Humanity of Earth," the Prime Arbiter said. Its voice did not come from any visible mouth. Instead, it resonated through the entire chamber, deep and powerful like the ringing of a great bell. "You stand before the Galactic Council. For millennia, we have watched your world. We have seen your rise from primitive creatures to spacefaring beings. We have observed your wars, your discoveries, your triumphs and failures." Linda stood perfectly still, her hands clasped in front of her. Kevin was at her right side, Patricia at her left. Behind them, the rest of the delegation formed a line. "You are young," the Arbiter continued. "By our measure, your entire civilization is but a moment. The youngest species in this chamber achieved interstellar travel over 10,000 years ago. Some of us were building empires when your ancestors were learning to make fire." A murmur passed through the assembly. Linda could not tell if it was agreement or amusement. And yet the Arbiter said, and its light pulsed brighter, "You have done something remarkable. You have reached the stars in a fraction of the time it took most species. You have survived threats that would have destroyed others. You have shown a capacity for growth and adaptation that is unusual." The Arbiter paused, and the chamber fell silent. "We will now ask our questions. Ambassador Linda Grant, please step forward." Linda walked to the very center of the platform and looked up at the tribunal. Her heart was beating fast, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "I am ready." The questions came from all 5 members of the tribunal, and they lasted for hours. They asked about human history, about the wars that had killed millions, about the weapons that could destroy cities. They asked about human religion, about the conflicts between different beliefs. They asked about human government, about the struggles between nations that had lasted for centuries. Linda answered every question honestly. She did not hide the dark parts of human history. She did not pretend that humanity was perfect, but she also spoke of the progress they had made, the lessons they had learned, the peace they had built after so much suffering. "Your species has a remarkable talent for violence," said one of the tribunal members. A creature that looked like a floating mass of tentacles wrapped around a glowing core. "You have killed more of your own kind than many species have total population. We have also saved more of our own kind than many species have imagined," Linda replied. "We have learned that cooperation is stronger than conflict. It took us a long time to learn this lesson, but we learned it." The questions continued. They asked about human technology, about the weapons they had developed and then chosen not to use. They asked about human art, human music, human stories. They seemed fascinated and disturbed in equal measure. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the Prime Arbiter spoke again. "We have heard enough. The tribunal will consider what we have learned. Ambassador Grant, you and your delegation will be summoned when we are ready to present our decision." Linda bowed her head slightly. "We thank the tribunal for this opportunity." She turned and led her delegation out of the chamber. She could feel the eyes of 47 species following her every step. The days that followed the assembly were filled with meetings, negotiations, and careful study. The delegation was given quarters in a section of Helix Prime. It's designed for species that breathed oxygen and preferred solid ground beneath their feet. The rooms were comfortable but simple. Linda suspected they were watched at all times. Councilor Tith visited them each day, bringing new documents and answering questions. The creature had become almost friendly, or at least as friendly as an alien being could be. Linda found herself looking for meaning in the shifting colors of its skin, learning slowly that blue meant calm, green meant interest, and red meant something close to alarm. On the third day, Teth brought the terms of membership. "These are the standard conditions for provisional entry into the council," Teth explained, placing a data device on the table in the delegation's meeting room. "Every species begins at this level. Full membership comes later, after a period of evaluation." Linda picked up the device and began reading. The room was silent except for her breathing. Kevin stood behind her, reading over her shoulder. Patricia sat across the table with her arms crossed, watching Linda's face for any reaction. The terms were extensive. Linda read them once, then again, then a third time, to make sure she understood. When she finally looked up, her expression was carefully neutral. "How long is the evaluation period?" she asked. 500 standard years, Teth replied. The delegation members exchanged glances. Kevin's face had gone pale. Patricia's jaw was tight with controlled anger. Even Samuel, who usually approached everything with academic detachment, looked troubled. 500 years, Linda repeated. "And during this time, what restrictions apply?" Teth's skin shifted to a muted gray. "Territory limitations. Humanity will be assigned a region of space. You may not expand beyond it without council approval. Technology restrictions. Certain developments require review and authorization. Fleet limitations. Your military vessels may not exceed a certain number or capability. Resource contributions. A percentage of your production will be directed to council projects." Linda set the device down on the table. "And what does humanity receive in return?" "Protection. No member species may attack you without facing collective response. Access to shared knowledge and technology. Trade opportunities with all member worlds. And the eventual path to full membership when the council determines you are ready." "When the council determines," Patricia said, "not when we determine." Teth's colors flickered. The council has guided civilization in this galaxy for over 100,000 years. We have seen species rise and fall. We have learned what works and what does not. These terms exist for good reason. After Teth left, the delegation erupted into discussion. Some argued that the terms were reasonable. 500 years was nothing compared to the benefits of joining an interstellar community. Others called it slavery with polite words, a trap designed to keep humanity weak and controlled forever. Linda listened to all of them. She asked questions. She pushed back on assumptions. She made sure every voice was heard. That was her way. That night, she walked alone through the observation deck of their quarters, looking out at the stars. Kevin found her there, his young face showing the strain of the past days. "You have not told us what you think," he said. "Everyone is waiting to hear your opinion." Linda was quiet for a long moment. "I think they are afraid of us." "Afraid?" "They have 47 species. Fleets we cannot count. Technology we cannot understand." "Why would they be afraid of us?" "Because we did in 10,000 years what took them 100,000. Because we survived things that should have destroyed us. Because we are unpredictable, and unpredictable things frighten those who value order above all else." Kevin considered this. "So the restrictions are not about helping us. They are about containing us." "Yes. They want to put us in a box and keep us there until we learn to think like them. Until we forget what made us different." Linda turned to face him. "But here's the question, Kevin. Is that such a bad thing? Maybe they are right. Maybe we are too dangerous, too aggressive, too young to be trusted with the stars. Maybe 500 years of guidance would make us better. Do you believe that?" Linda looked back at the stars. "I believe that humanity has made terrible mistakes. I believe we have caused suffering beyond measure. But I also believe that we have always found a way forward. Not because someone told us how, but because we figured it out ourselves. That is who we are. That is what we do." The next day, Linda requested a private meeting with Counselor Teth. They met in a small room, overlooking one of the station's interior gardens. Plants from a dozen worlds grew there in carefully controlled environments, each one beautiful and strange. "I want to understand something," Linda said. "In all the history of the Council, has any species ever been granted full membership without going through the provisional period?" Teth's color shifted through several shades before settling on a deep purple that Linda had not seen before. "No, never. The process is considered essential." "And has any species ever refused the terms?" The purple darkened. "Some have. They were excluded from council space. Trade was forbidden. In most cases, they eventually collapsed or were absorbed by other powers. A few survived in isolation, but they are considered primitive, irrelevant. What if a species refused and did not collapse? What if they grew strong on their own?" Teth was silent for a long time. When it finally spoke, its voice was quieter than usual. "That has never happened. The Council would not allow it." Linda nodded slowly. "Thank you, Counselor. You have been very helpful." She returned to the delegation quarters and called a meeting. Everyone gathered in the main room, and Linda stood before them with the weight of a world on her shoulders. "I have made my decision," she said. "But this is not my choice alone. We represent all of humanity. So I am going to tell you what I think, and then we are going to discuss it, and then we are going to vote." She looked at each of them in turn. Scientists, diplomats, soldiers, scholars, 50 humans, chosen to speak for billions. These terms are not an invitation. They are a cage. The Council is not offering us membership. They are offering us controlled existence, limited growth, permanent supervision. They fear what we might become, so they want to make sure we never become it. Patricia nodded firmly. Samuel looked thoughtful. Kevin waited with hope in his eyes. "I believe we should refuse," Linda said. "I believe we should thank them for their offer and walk away. I believe we should go back to Earth and build our own future on our own terms, without asking permission from anyone." The room was silent. Then the questions came, and the arguments, and the fears. For hours they debated, considering every angle, weighing every risk. Some said it was madness to reject the protection of the Council. Others said it was madness to accept chains disguised as gifts. When the vote came, it was not unanimous. But it was decisive. Humanity would refuse. Linda Grant closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of what they had chosen. Then she opened them and began preparing. What she would say to the Council, the summons came on the morning of the 30th day. A formal message arrived from the High Tribunal, requesting the presence of the human delegation in the council chamber for the final announcement. The tone was polite but firm. This was not a request that could be refused. Linda dressed carefully that morning. She chose simple clothes, dark and professional. The same outfit she had worn for important speeches back on Earth. She looked at herself in the reflective surface that served as a mirror. Saw a woman who had aged years in the past month. The gray in her hair seemed more visible now. The lines around her eyes were deeper. Kevin knocked on her door. "It is time," he said. "I know." Linda took a deep breath. "Are the others ready?" "Ready and waiting." Patricia has been pacing for an hour. Samuel keeps checking his notes, even though there is nothing left to check. Everyone is nervous. Good. Nervous means they understand what is happening. Linda stepped out of her room. "Let us go make history." The walk to the council chamber felt longer than before. The corridors were empty this time, cleared of other species. Linda wondered if this was meant as a sign of respect or a precaution. Perhaps they expected trouble. The great doors opened, and the delegation entered the amphitheater. Every seat was filled again. The chamber was completely silent, except for the soft sound of human footsteps on the smooth floor. Linda led her people to the center platform and stood facing the high tribunal. The Prime Arbiter's crystalline form glowed brightly in the chamber's light. When it spoke, its voice filled every corner of the vast space. Humanity of Earth. The Council has considered your case with great care. We have studied your history, your capabilities, your potential. We have debated at length and reached our decision. The Arbiter paused, and Linda felt the attention of thousands of alien beings pressing down on her like physical weight. The Galactic Council offers humanity provisional membership under the standard terms. You will be assigned territory in Sector 7 Gamma, a region of 12 star systems suitable for your biological needs. Your fleet will be limited to 100 vessels of approved classification. Your research programs will be subject to review. In return, you will receive the protection and guidance of the Council as you grow into your place among the stars. Another pause. The chamber waited. Ambassador Linda Grant, do you accept these terms on behalf of humanity? Linda stepped forward. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. But when she spoke, her voice was clear and steady, carrying to every corner of the chamber. Prime Arbiter, honored members of the Galactic Council, humanity is grateful for this opportunity. We are grateful for the time you have taken to evaluate us, for the knowledge you have shared, for the glimpse you have given us of what exists beyond our small corner of the universe. Paused, and the silence grew heavier. But we cannot accept these terms. The reaction was immediate. A wave of sound passed through the assembly, voices overlapping in dozens of languages. Some representatives rose from their seats. Others leaned forward with expressions that might have been shock or anger or disbelief. The chamber guards, massive creatures in armor that looked like living metal, shifted their positions slightly. Linda waited until the noise subsided, then continued. We have read your terms carefully. We understand what you are offering and what you are asking in return. But humanity cannot accept a future where our growth is limited, our potential is controlled, and our fate is decided by others. The Prime Arbiter's light pulsed rapidly. You understand the consequences of refusal. Species that reject the Council are excluded from all benefits of membership. Trade is forbidden. Travel through Council space is restricted. Any conflict with member species will result in collective action against you. We understand, Linda said. You will be alone, isolated, without protection or support. Other powers exist in this galaxy that do not follow our rules. They will see your rejection of the Council as weakness, as opportunity. We understand. You are choosing hardship and danger over peace and security. For what? Pride. Stubbornness? A refusal to accept that there are older and wiser beings in this universe. Linda felt a flash of anger at the condescension in those words, but she kept her composure. We are choosing freedom. The freedom to make our own mistakes and learn from them. The freedom to grow at our own pace, in our own direction. The freedom to become whatever we are capable of becoming without limits set by others. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many species as she could. Humanity has learned one thing above all else in our history. When we are told that something is impossible, we find a way to do it anyway. When we are pushed down, we stand up again. When we are told to stay in our place, we move forward. Her voice grew stronger. You see our history of war and violence, and you are afraid. You see our rapid progress, and you are threatened. You want to control us because you do not understand us. But control is not partnership. Restrictions are not guidance. A cage is still a cage, no matter how comfortable you make it. The Prime Arbiter's form seemed to pulse with agitation. You speak of freedom, but you do not understand what waits in the darkness between the stars. There are things in this galaxy that would consume your species without hesitation. The Council exists to protect against such threats, and we will face those threats ourselves, Linda said. And if we fall, we will fall on our feet, fighting for our own future, not on our knees, begging for scraps from your table. She turned to face her delegation. 50 faces looked back at her, showing fear and determination in equal measure. She nodded once, then turned back to the tribunal. Thank you for your offer. We respectfully decline. Linda began walking toward the exit. Behind her, the delegation fell into step, forming a line as they moved across the chamber floor. The sound of their footsteps echoed in the vast space like a drumbeat. The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives were shouting, demanding that the humans be stopped, insisting that they could not simply walk away. Some called for the doors to be sealed. Others demanded an immediate response. Linda did not look back. She kept her eyes forward, her pace steady, her head held high. The great doors loomed ahead, still open, offering a path back to their ship, back to Earth, back to an uncertain future. Just before they reached the doors, a voice cut through the noise. It was the Prime Arbiter, and its tone had changed. The bell-like resonance was gone, replaced by something that sounded almost like desperation. Ambassador Grant. Wait. Linda stopped. She turned slowly to face the tribunal one last time. You are making a mistake, the Arbiter said. You do not know what you are doing. The galaxy is not kind to those who stand alone. Linda looked at the ancient being, at the creature that had guided civilizations for longer than humanity had existed. And for just a moment, she saw something in its pulsing light that she recognized. Fear. Maybe we are making a mistake, she said. But it is our mistake to make. Goodbye, Prime Arbiter. She turned and walked through the doors, and humanity followed her into the unknown. The corridor outside was empty. Counselor Teth stood alone, waiting for them. Its skin was a color Linda had never seen before, a strange mixture of all the shades she had come to know. I did not believe you would actually do it, Teth said. In all my years of service, I have never seen a species refuse. There is always a first time, Linda replied. What will you do now? Linda looked at her delegation, at the men and women who had just helped her change the course of human history. They looked tired and scared and proud, all at the same time. And we start building our own future. The Dauntless departed Helix Prime within 2 hours of leaving the council chamber. Captain Maria Santos guided the ship away from the station with smooth precision. Threading through the traffic of alien vessels that parted before them like water around a stone, no one tried to stop them. No weapons were raised. The council simply watched them go. Linda spent the first day of the return journey in her quarters, writing reports that would be transmitted to Earth ahead of their arrival. The words came slowly at first, then faster as she found her voice. She wrote about what they had seen, what they had learned, and what they had chosen. She did not hide the risks. She did not promise that everything would be fine. She simply told the truth and let the people of Earth decide what to make of it. On the second day, the first warnings came. The Dauntless intercepted communications between council vessels. Translated by the ship's computers with increasing accuracy, the messages spread across the galaxy like ripples in a pond, carrying a simple message to all member species. Humanity had refused. Humanity was now excluded. All contact with the species from Earth was forbidden. Kevin brought the reports to Linda's quarters. his face showing the worry he could no longer hide. "They are already calling us dangerous," he said. "Some of the species are demanding that the Council take action against us immediately." "What kind of action?" Linda asked. "Military, economic. Some are even talking about quarantine, sealing off our entire region of space to prevent us from spreading." Linda nodded slowly. This was expected. They are angry and afraid. Angry because we rejected them. Afraid because they do not know what we will do next. What will we do next? Survive. Grow. Prove them wrong. Linda looked at the star map displayed on her wall, showing the long journey still ahead. The Council has been the only power in this galaxy for 100,000 years. They are not used to being challenged. They will try to isolate us, to strangle us slowly until we collapse or come crawling back. We need to make sure that does not happen. The journey home took 4 months. During that time, the delegation worked constantly, planning for what lay ahead. Patricia organized defense strategies, calculating how to protect Earth with limited resources against potential Council action. Samuel cataloged everything they had learned about alien technology, looking for ways to catch up with civilizations thousands of years ahead. Kevin coordinated communications with Earth, keeping the governments informed and preparing them for the difficult days to come. When the Dauntless emerged from its final fold above Earth, they found a fleet waiting for them. Every space-capable vessel humanity possessed had gathered in orbit, military and civilian alike, forming a wall of metal and light around their home planet. It was not much compared to what they had seen at Helix Prime, but it was theirs. The first message came from the Secretary General herself, Broadcast, directly to the ship. Her voice was steady despite the weight of her words. "Ambassador Grant, the people of Earth have received your reports. We have discussed them at length. We have argued, debated, and disagreed about many things. But on one matter, we are united. You made the right choice. Welcome home." Linda felt tears forming in her eyes for the first time since leaving Helix Prime. She blinked them away and replied, "Thank you, Madam Secretary. It is good to be home." The months that followed were the most difficult humanity had ever faced. The Council's isolation was effective. Trade that had barely begun was cut off. Species that had shown interest in humanity went silent. The galaxy turned its back on Earth, leaving them alone in the cold vastness of space. But humanity did not collapse. They adapted. They innovated. They found ways to survive that the Council had never imagined. Within a year, Earth had launched 3 new interstellar vessels, each one better than the last. Within 5 years, they had established colonies on a dozen worlds, expanding into unclaimed space that the Council had never bothered to explore. Within a decade, they'd built a network of stations and outposts that stretched across light years, and they were not alone. Other species existed outside the Council's control. Some had been excluded like humanity. Others had never been invited at all. These forgotten races had survived in the gaps between Council territory, struggling to exist without the protection or restrictions that membership provided. Linda Grant, now serving as Earth's first ambassador to the Free Territories, made contact with these species one by one. She did not offer them control or conditions. She offered partnership, mutual benefit, a chance to build something new together. The Voroth rebels were first. A group of Counselor Teth species who had grown tired of the Council's rigid rules and sought a different path. They brought knowledge of technologies humanity had never seen. The Crystalline Collective came next. Beings of living mineral who had been isolated for centuries after refusing to share their unique abilities with the Council. They offered materials stronger than anything humans could produce. Then the Void Swimmers, creatures that lived in the space between stars and had been hunted nearly to extinction by fearful Council members. They offered navigation through regions of space that no ship could safely cross. Year by year, the coalition grew. Species that had been forgotten, abandoned, or cast aside found a home in the alliance that humanity was building. They called it the Free Assembly, and its only rule was that every member was equal. 20 years after humanity walked away from the Council table, HFY Assembly controlled more territory than a dozen council species combined. Their technology had advanced beyond anything anyone had predicted. Their fleets were strong, their people were thriving, and their message was spreading across the galaxy. You do not have to accept the limits others place on you. You can write your own future. The Council watched all of this with growing concern. The Prime Arbiter convened emergency sessions, demanding solutions to the human problem. Some argued for military action before the Free Assembly grew too strong. Others counseled patience, hoping the alliance would collapse on its own. But in the quiet moments, in the private chambers where ancient beings spoke honestly about their fears, a different conversation was taking place. "You made an error," admitted one of the tribunal members. A creature whose species had been among the first to join the council nearly 80,000 years ago. "We saw their violence and assumed it was all they were. We saw their youth and assumed it meant weakness. We did not understand." "What did we not understand?" asked another. "That their greatest strength is not their weapons or their technology. It is their refusal to accept boundaries. They do not see limits as natural. They see them as challenges. And when they are challenged, they do not give up. They push harder." The Prime Arbiter's light had grown dim in recent years, a sign of age even for a being that measured its life in millennia. When it spoke, its voice was softer than before. "We offered them safety in exchange for obedience. We offered them guidance in exchange for control. And they looked at everything we had built over 100,000 years and said no." The Arbiter paused. "Perhaps that should have told us something, what? That the galaxy is not static. That order is not permanent. That even the oldest powers can be wrong." The Arbiter's form pulsed once, slowly, like a heart beating its last. "The humans did not need our permission to become great. They only needed to believe they could." Far away, on a planet called Earth, Ambassador Linda Grant sat in her garden and watched the sunset. She was old now, her hair white and her movements slow. But her eyes were still sharp, still watching, still planning. Kevin Price, self-gray-haired and distinguished, sat beside her. He had served as her aide for nearly 4 decades, and he had never once regretted the choice. "The latest reports came in this morning," he said. 3 more species have requested membership in the Free Assembly, and there are rumors that some council members are privately reaching out, looking for alternatives." Linda smiled, the same slight smile she had worn on the day she walked away from the council table. "The galaxy is changing, because of you." "Because of what you did?" Linda shook her head. "Not because of me, because of all of us. Because humanity refused to be afraid, refused to accept limits, refused to believe that our place in the universe was decided by anyone but ourselves." She looked up at the sky, where the first stars were becoming visible in the darkening blue. Somewhere out there, the Galactic Council was watching, wondering, perhaps finally beginning to understand. "They thought they knew what we were," Linda said softly. "They thought our history of war and suffering proved we were dangerous, unpredictable, a threat to be contained. They were right about one thing. We are unpredictable. But they were wrong about what that means." "What does it mean?" Linda closed her eyes and felt the warm evening breeze on her face. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "It means we never stop trying. It means we never accept defeat. It means that no matter how dark things get, no matter how impossible the odds, humanity finds a way forward." She opened her eyes and looked at Kevin, at the man who had stood beside her through everything. That is what they should have feared. Not our weapons. Not our wars. Our hope. In the silence that followed, Kevin understood something he had always known, but never quite put into words. The Galactic Council had watched humanity step away from their table, and they had felt fear. Not because humanity was dangerous, but because humanity was free, and in a galaxy built on control. There was nothing more terrifying than that.